Here we go. Maybe very briefly introduce yourselves to the nice audience you have here.
Sure. So I'm Dieter Wachters, the top guy on the slide. I work at Collibra. I started at Collibra quite a long time ago in 2011, when it was just a few people. I was lucky to see it grow a lot. Eventually, I left Collibra in 2020. Started my own startup, which got then acquired by Collibra last year. So now I'm back at Collibra. So that's my story.
Just remember, top guy cannot escape Collibra.
Well, since you're the top guy, that means I need to be something else. But so my name is Jan Hollez. I'm one of the founders of Deliverect. Deliverect was actually second startup / scale-up that I did together with Zong, my co-founder. So we've been making software for restaurants for quite a while. Deliverect is quite behind the scenes, so not that customer facing this time. So for any people that have ordered some food, which I would be surprised if everyone would say no, you've probably had your food somehow. It passed the Deliverect systems, and we made sure that we reduced the chance there would be errors, improved the chance that it would still be warm when it arrived, and optimized things for the restaurant so that they would be able to work with a lot of these systems. So that's basically what we do.
So if you already had to wait a long time for your food, imagine what it would be like without Jan.
Or it means that's one of the few restaurants that is not using us.
Then you call Jan and they send a business developer. Maybe like as an icebreaker, just if you were to describe your personal attitude to AI, what 3 words would you pick? Like what would the word cloud be for you?
Since I'm holding the mic, I'll go first, I guess. Maybe I would start with the word opportunities. Then disruption, just because, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I would end with speed, but not speed as just in being able to 10x yourself or work faster, but also, and I think for all of you, it's good. You're here, you're learning, you're really into it. But I think a lot of companies are gonna be in for a very big surprise because they're not yet investing enough in it. Also, a lot of product and developers, they get it now, but a lot of the rest of the organization is not. And I think most people don't realize they have like until the end of the year to completely reinvent how they work, and they really transform how they work. So that's why the fast is very important.
Yeah, definitely. I would say first of all, impressed. Like I think we've all in the past few years have been thinking like, how is this possible that a bunch of numbers can do this? And you kind of start doubting about how human brain works, because if that can do it, the same thing as we do, like what are we? So definitely impressed what technology can do in such a short time. Second is pragmatic. I think it's important to think about it in a very pragmatic way and approach it. Like you see a lot of people overreaching as well with AI and doing stupid things. So it's good to also sometimes take a step back and think about in a pragmatic way about it. And after Jarno's talk, afraid, or more vigilant, let's say.
Let's maybe start at the beginning of that journey. Do you remember like the first experiments at your company, like the first time that you had that moment, like, wow, numbers can do this? Like, how did that start?
Yeah, so that was when I was at the startup in 2022, probably. So we started with GitHub Copilot. In the beginning it even came free with GitHub, and it first starts with just of course a single line autocomplete. It was already like, oh, cool. That was exactly what I wanted to do, and then it did like a full function. And then you see that you get like over optimistic, and then suddenly I needed to build like a specific algorithm that I couldn't think myself immediately, and I was very optimistic. I was like, okay, let's ask Copilot, and it built something, and it looked really good. It built a unit test. Everything was green, so I was super happy. And then a week later, so I put it on Slack, and everyone like, whoa, see this, it did this crazy. And then like a week later, I realized that it actually didn't work at all, and it faked the unit test to be always green. So that's definitely when it, when it became dangerous as well. I think it wouldn't do that anymore these days, or it would be much more subtle. But that was the first painful experience as well.
And for you, Jan, at Deliverect, what were the first signs of value that you guys were seeing?
Well, I was actually quite lucky that just because of the interest I had and because I had a lot of contacts already with people working at big tech and so on, I was already aware of what was coming before GitHub Copilot was there, before the chat GPT moment was there, and the world noticed what these models could do. However, of course, like even though that was very impressive, indeed it came with a lot of flaws. And so my first reflex at that moment was not in terms of how will it be able to allow us to work faster, but I really immediately thought like, okay, we need to be ahead of the curve here. We need to make sure we learn and we experiment with this for our customers, for our products, because I immediately saw the potential it would have to eventually disrupt or be disrupted, right? If you don't do it fast enough. So the beginning was for me actually quite a struggle, if I'm also honest, to convince enough people to at that moment already take that leap of faith, because we've of course we make software that that so many restaurants rely on, that so many people, you know, day to day, like we've had billions of orders already passing through our system. So that core needs to be super reliable. And so our people are really trained to make sure things work all the time. But I was really pushing hard for a lot of experimentation, innovating, but of course in a separate, safer environment. And so our first things were really geared towards trying out cool new stuff, imagining what the future of our products would look like in a couple of years.
I think both of you, both companies, you're both technical founders. So there it definitely helps that you were enthusiastic to start with. And then I hear that even you, I mean, basically being the boss, you still had a hard time like getting everybody on board. Like, is it for people who are bottom-up enthusiastic, but they don't have the top-down belief, is it just game over, or?
I think that's partly maybe also why I had a bit that warning at the start. I think luckily by now, at least in product, I think everyone realizes, but even there, like with many things, it's skills you need to learn, and you learn by doing, and those that have been doing it for longer, they are much better at it, and yet you see such a big difference in skill level, and I worry for juniors and for having enough juniors getting to senior level. But in the beginning, I worried a lot for some of the seniors, because although they have much bigger potential, right, and they are able to do much more with those tools because they understand what good looks like, and they can help the models create those things that are good. But people are not that good at change, right? And I heard you as well. And yes, a lot of people like to experiment, but at the same time, very often the speed at which people get excited and actually start to change, and especially in a situation where things aren't perfect, like engineers typically, and I'm one myself, but they will be more hesitant. They will first think about the issues, and we live in a world where if you do that, maybe in 1 month, the issues you worried about, they're solved already, and you should have, you know, already learned 5 new things and stayed ahead of the curve.
Yeah. Dieter, did you in your teams, did you have people who were really skeptical?
Yeah, for sure. In the beginning, and we still see that, but always less and less, of course. The endorsement from the top of the company is extremely important, right? Like if people feel like we can really do this, and we kind of don't need to be afraid to do it and make mistakes there, that is extremely important. I think the upper management needs to provide the right structure and incentives to really use it, allow experimentation, within the right boundaries, of course. But that is, I think, extremely important to do that. Yeah.
Maybe inverting that. So okay, a carrot, it's nice if you reward people for experimentation. At some point, do you have to start using a stick to? Did you at some point say like, no, we are going to do this? Because indeed changes.
I think in that case, you probably more have like a cultural problem with those engineers, and maybe there's other things that need to happen. Because I think that's more of a mindset, right? Like, I think you now see a big difference between the engineers that just like coding and engineers that like to build actual products, right? And you see the second one, they still thrive now, and they're super happy because they can build more and they can materialize their ideas and so forth, while people that just were waiting for the next Jira ticket to code, yeah, they lose kind of their mode, right? So I think there is already, yeah, just what you're used to and what brings you joy is, yeah, can be problematic for some people, I think.
Do you remember, Jan, moment where you said, now we have to step on the gas like it's...
Yeah, for sure. And of course, one of the reasons is because we were so early with it. So, and, you know, of course, I'm someone, I love inspiring people, and that helps a lot, and you can get far with that. But I do think from time to time, you also really need to, you know, say, this is the timeline, and that's what we expect by that date, to really make it tangible. And like, it's not just about using it and knowing it and being a bit better, right? Like, I think, again, like I said, the difference we see between the worst and the best people is enormous. And I'm sure the worst, you know, in our department, in our company, will still probably be way better than in a lot of other companies. But we are in it to win, right? Like, and that's often what I tell our people. You know, we're Formula One. You know, we wanna be at the top, and I want our people to be at the top, and I want to make sure that they know, and that wherever they will go, they will have an amazing job, right? And so I think it's also our job to make sure that everyone within the company, and as I said, not just product, is able to do it, so that they are safe in this future.
Let's build on that a bit. Like you say, everyone at the company. So indeed, you want to raise the level for all. So you want to have those best practices. Like when's the point when experimentation becomes codification, or when does it become not a free for all, but like but this is actually the way that we're going to do this? Is that like, how do you find that point?
I think. I actually had some talks with Jeroen about it also from TechWolf, and I think first how we both looked at it is, instead of starting with raising the floor, you first want to find those people that are really also seeing it. They are constantly learning, and they are able to already build things and demonstrate things, and that helps even better than just us saying it, right? And as they do it, more people do it, and then yes, you will have needs for, you know, there will be problems arising, you will need to fix them, you will need to standardize. You showed a lot of these things that happen, and I've learned to less focus on that as a leader, because these things, engineers especially, they're very good at that. That will come. And so again, I want to mainly push everyone, the whole organization, forward to make sure that we're doing the most we can, because that's where the real gain is. And the rest, I really trust the teams. They will figure out how to make sure that we then do it in a safe way, with quality, and in ways we have those compounding effects where everyone learns from each other. Maybe one more thing that I wanted to add as well before I pass the mic. What I also saw that really helped, and I think after about a year of experimentation, I wanted to also really build in Ghent like a whole community around it with to make sure that it's not, we don't just learn from each other within the company, but also outside. And that's when I also started with AI events, and that were less about giving presentations, but really showing what have we done, what works, what failed, what did we learn from it, and really let people share. And it also gave an even extra push for people to know, like, okay, we're gonna do something then, we need to have something cool to show. And it was an extra incentive also for people to experiment and learn.
I like the idea that it's suddenly very exciting to discuss tooling, and like it's nice to geek again. Like
Yeah, for sure.
you also did at Collibra. Do you also think like the best practices they will happen if you just keep pushing the envelope?
Yeah, we definitely went far with letting people experiment. So we have no token limits, for example, at least for now. But so that people don't feel afraid like, hey, I'm gonna run out, and if you have, you will immediately see which people stick out of the pack and will really drive things forward, and then giving them the right forum to share their knowledge and be enthusiastic to all the others. You will see that they pull all the rest up because you give them the space to do so. And then at a certain point, I do think, of course, it's time to bring certain structure, but I think from management side of things, that's more around principles, right? Making sure you stick to your principles on what you want to achieve, how you want to do that, and so forth, so that they have the right guardrails to make sure that whatever you build is still within that right structure, and you get the right feedback, the right monitoring on what people are doing, and you make sure that what you still want reviewed is still reviewed, and you have some audit trays in that, especially we're an enterprise software company, so all of these things are extremely important. So you do want to bring structure in there, and of course not make sure that everybody starts just doing anything without any oversight, but you want to try to find that balance, of course.
You already mentioned it, the token limits. It's becoming a real thing. I already felt sorry for IT managers. They had to manage like the tooling budget, and like, just can you give us like a peek behind the curtain, like what's the tooling stack at your companies, or are you also Team Anthropic?
Yeah, so right now I think almost everyone switched to Cloud Code. So we also started with GitHub Copilot at Collibra, and then there was at a certain point a big push for Cursor, mostly for front-end engineers because they're already used to working in VS Code. But then on the back-end side, it was much more Cloud Code, and now you see most people switching there. And I think also Anthropic does that really well. That their enterprise play, and the way they deal with that. And as I mentioned on tokens, right now we don't really put limits, but we are pushing hard with Anthropic to get better monitoring, of course, because that's important, because you don't want misuse either. And you see people basically doing everything with AI these days, even if you would rather just build it. I always prefer doing something deterministic, so have it built a script that you can repeat, but now you see a lot of people just asking everything to Claude that's every time the same thing, so you waste a lot of tokens that is not necessary, and that's something we need to start controlling much more, I think.
You know what's a question that you shouldn't ask Claude? Like, how much will this cost in tokens? It will never reply, it will always say, 2 days.
It's like the
like,
R's,
what 2 days? Like what 2 days?
It's like the R's in strawberry, probably, yeah.
What team are you guys in?
Well, definitely most people use Cloud Code, but I actually try to even actively stop people from standardizing too much. I think it's nice that we still have quite some people using other ones. Even still Codex is used a bit, and we've seen for certain specific cases it outperforming Claude as well, and the combination is also quite powerful sometimes. So we often like one tool reviewing the other tool's output and stuff like that. We're even experimenting, or some people are experimenting with other harnesses as well. So with maybe Claude underneath or others. The problem you have a bit, at least on the Anthropic side, they're all subsidizing things a lot, and so that helps a bit with token cost, because I think the 200 plan, it's like what, $10,000 in inference, I think, if you would use the APIs. And so the problem with using APIs or using other harnesses is that often for Anthropic you need to go through the API, so it can get very costly. With Codex, luckily not yet the case.
I have a statement, or I have a little quiz for you at the audience and for the panel as well. So there's two statements that you have to pick one. Tokens are going to become so expensive that it is going to become a problem, or we will make AI more efficient that token use won't be a problem. So either you're quite negative on it or you're quite positive. Who thinks that tokens will become so costly that it will become a real problem? No.
No, but and I'm gonna.
Oh, and then the other team is like, who thinks we're just gonna make it more efficient and that's all going to go away?
So
now you're sitting here.
No, but I'm gonna explain why. Like I really think there's gonna be this small moment where of the in between because of the heavy subsidization and the fact that they're going to go public. So we're all addicted to these plans now, and so there's gonna be this short moment where we're like, oh fuck, and again it's gonna be solved, and it's not the best models I think are gonna remain very expensive, so way more expensive than they're now, but the ones that are a bit below that will be good enough for most things. So we won't care in most situations. So that's why I stick to my both answer.
Yeah, Dieter, you were brave enough to make a choice.
Yeah, but I agree with Jan. Like actually, something we're also trying to experiment with, and also like with different harnesses. And things like that, but also with local LLMs, right? Like a Gemma 4, like what hardware will we need to be able to run that? What can we do with it? For what is it too weak? Now you see, was it this week GLM 5.2, which scores super high. So yeah, there is a lot of competition in the open source models as well. So. But I agree, right? Eventually, they will need to make money as well. So it will, especially now that they want to go IPO, it will be tricky.
I like the fact that you mentioned the word addicted. Did people see the Microsoft memo that leaked a few weeks ago? It was basically in the product plan for Microsoft Scout, their agent. It said we are going to make people addicted, and that's the growth plan. And then they had to apologize, of course. Like, who wrote this? Like, Facebook practices, right? Let's switch to the topic of quality. You already mentioned it. Both of you make business critical software where a lot of companies rely on, enterprises rely on the quality topic. It's one of the elephants in the room. Are there any shortcuts, like positive shortcuts there, like that you could give as a tip? Like if you already do this, then you're already well on your way?
Yeah, I think it's a bit the same as what Jarno already said about security. It's fighting fire with fire. Like, actually, I think that there is a huge opportunity to get to software with much better quality. Again, very dangerous to spend a lot of tokens there to do like experimentation testing and things like that. We play with that a lot. But it can very, very quickly cost you a lot of tokens as well. So that is definitely something to look at with smaller models and local machines. But I think just making sure what everybody hates is writing documentation and writing tests. And yeah, allowing your models to already do that much better. So we see already that just naturally our coverage is much better, much higher. And with high quality tests, which also didn't used to be the case. So we actually spend often more time when I do code reviews. I spend more time on reviewing the tests to see, did it cover everything that is needed? Because the trust in the actual code becomes higher. So you just see like, did it cover what we actually wanted to build? And check that.
Jan, I see you nodding. You're also in the camp that it's probably a driver for quality and not.
Yeah, and it's also how we kind of set it up. So we try to make sure that for our core or platform, the main driver there has been less about speed, but indeed making sure that we don't slow down and we increase even quality, which I think we've been able to do quite a bit, and where we of course have used then more the making very quick MVPs, product managers that are able to experiment with new things, show it to our, customer advisory board, things like that. They can build these things, vibe code them, all doesn't matter. Check with customers that it's actually the right thing they have to build, and then it can still be done better, but still not, like, there is really a difference in quality, like depending on what the product is, you need just that different level, and so the different levels and qualities allow for different speeds.
Let's end on that note a little bit. Like you mentioned, product managers now creating MVPs themselves, increasing testing. We see it as well. Like roles are really, becoming much more fluid. What does a product and engineering organization look like in 2 years' time? Even if it's hard to predict what will happen next week, like what's like the new product team of the future?
So I completely agree. They are already more fluid, but you will also have a lot more engineers doing more product management work. But I also still really believe what I said in the beginning, that people that have a certain knowledge they built up over all these years, like their jobs are safe if they also can then multiply themselves with AI. They will always be better, and it's not just going to be in product, it's going to be at every level, and everyone just needs to rewire their brain a bit with what is now currently possible. But a lot of the things we've learned as engineers, they are still valid. And it's, you just need to think of it more as you suddenly have an army of juniors, right? And so a lot of the work, and actually they're going to be better than juniors, but better in a certain scope. They might still not work perfectly together. They might not understand everything about architecture. You might, all those things that you would otherwise think beforehand. There's a lot of value in that. And so yeah, just thinking how you can use those existing skills, but at a massive scale and also even while you're not even awake. I love the fact that we can do so much and get so much done now while we're sleeping, while we're here. I have agents running. So
I was just going to ask, are you secretly building software right now?
Yeah, I'm guilty of that. The hard part is actually each time something new comes out, it also gives you and if you still have tokens left on that thing, you want to kind of, get the maximum out of it. It's addicting and it can also be draining, but it's also so cool that whatever idea you have, whatever experiment you want to run, like the opportunities, the possibilities are endless. It's why I started also with opportunities as the word, right?
Dieter, for you, how do you see your teams evolving? What tips would you give them?
Yeah, what I typically don't believe in is like the 2-person teams or something, because your risk becomes much higher if one person leaves. Yeah, you lose a lot. So I rather see still similar size Scrum teams, at least for people, but just covering more and be broader. And I think most people's job will simply shift more, right? Like in the past, people you have all these layers in computers where you have assembler, and then you had like initially first plain JavaScript, and then you got like all the frameworks, and everything became easier to build things faster and so forth. And now with AI, it's another huge leap. And as an engineer and product management, you're spending much more time on what are we actually building and defining kind of the meta layer, right? Like describing what are our principles, like what should always be true, what are the core concepts behind what we're building, so that you don't even need to write detailed specs anymore, right? That's what you see now, like spec-driven development suddenly is super popular again, and I definitely understand, but that's also something I try to avoid, like writing super detailed specs. That's why you saw a lot as well, like huge documents that are then thrown from product management to engineering with everything detailed, how things need to work. But eventually a lot of these things are always repetition as well, because they're always based if the product manager thinks about these specs, they think about, they make decisions because of certain things they want things to be. And I think spending time on trying to put that on paper like what are those principles, what are the main conceptual abstract rules that we want to do things by, you can actually have your LLMs also check against those, right? Like instead of the detailed specs and now, yeah, this column needs to be resizable. Yeah, that doesn't make sense to write it down. It should be automatic and it should know that, and then you can have your LLMs check against that. Like eventually your source code becomes your sort of truth and not your specs anymore and things like that, because from the moment it's in your main branch, your specs are outdated and are worthless basically.
If I can still add one other thing, and I agree, it probably if you have two people in a team, it's not a safe, not too safe thing. But what I do think will happen is, like in the past, to make things and keep things efficient, you split up software in a lot of components, and then one team is responsible for one thing. And what you do start already to see is that, well, the scope of these things is going to get bigger, and the better teams are able to handle multiple components, multiple projects. You saw the open source maintainer, you know, maintaining all these libraries, things that were in the past almost impossible, and they become possible at the same time though. And that is something we'll still need to see the impact of that, but not everyone is that good at context switching, and it can really drain you. And so I do think that's going to be something we'll need to take into account, but it's going to be a side effect of the fact that there's you have this army of resources that is able to do things for you. And so you will have to kind of, while these things are doing its work, you will have time to think, but you'll probably be doing it on multiple things at the same time.
All right, if I let my LLM summarize that final part, so it's having the mindset, thinking opportunities, still having the eyes on the prize, like what is it that we want to ship, and then just having that happen. Thank you so much, Dieter and Jan, for this amazing panel.